back to Thru the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier, and we're in studio with Cousin Sal.
Yeah, what's up, buddy? And a new studio.
Oh, yeah. Look, we got
Thru the Ringer. Wow, that T is really trying hard. I like this. I really like this.
It's the longest T in the business, is what they say.
You're dressed as a coach.
yeah.
Are we going to run wind sprints?
Well, I put on my coach's jacket. We're going to talk about a little teaser about North Carolina football at some point. I just wanted to dress for success, Sal. This is what they tell me to do.
All right.
You wear what you want to wear for your job. I'm ready, Lombardi. You tell me when. I'm locked and loaded.
I love it. All right. I think you're loaded more than locked. But let's do it. Let's talk Carolina football.
Let's get it. Let's start with First Tate before we get to that. And this is Ohio State football. We're going to keep it in the same realm of college football. I say to you, Sal, Ohio State in the national championship game on Monday night should have played their walk-ons against Notre Dame in honor of Rudy. Your thoughts on this? It was 31-7.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this game. I'm like, we haven't had close national championship games. How can we honor, one of the greatest sports movies we have? Put in the walk-ons.
Forget about just the walk-ons. Put in the actual Rudy.
Yeah,
what an FU that
Sean
would have
Astin,
been.
he runs out there.
The actual Rudy Rudiger, the 80-year-old, have him take the kneel-down snaps for Ohio State. That would have been a huge FU.
Lou Holtz coaches the second half.
To Notre Dame. And you're right, it was 31-7. They came back. They almost covered. They were covering for a minute. And then the big catch by the 19-year-old. That was spectacular. But they were the best team. They wouldn't have made it. Neither of those teams would have made it under last year's format, which would have been top four. And so I guess the playoffs worked. It was good. We'll talk about that in a second, I think. But how about Ryan Day almost getting fired? Instead, some woman drives him into a brick wall, into a cart. That's
right, the golf cart into a brick wall. And Ryan Day, honestly, became likable through this whole experience.
Yeah.
He got fired by the fans. Then people started to feel bad for him, and now he wins a national championship. And we should have figured this out, Sal. Last time they changed the format from the BCS to the CFP, Ohio State, when it was 4 teams, they won the national championship.
Right.
They changed it from 4 to 12 this year, and Ohio State does it again. So we should have seen the signs.
They were great. There was no... everyone else can make a claim for second best, but they were 10 points better than everybody.
Except for Michigan fans who are claiming that they are, in fact, the national champs.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid.
Yeah, let it go. Next up, Sal, college football needs to move the schedule up so it doesn't compete with the NFL playoffs. We had divisional round on Saturday and Sunday in the NFL, and then we had the college football national championship on Monday. It just felt like too much for one weekend.
It is too much. They could move it back. We have the conference championships defend December 5th or so. Army-Navy doesn't need to get its own week, right?
Right.
We get it. The quarterbacks are going to run the whole time, or it's going to be a full.
I think a new executive order just came in, though, that it has to have its own week.
It's kind of dumb. Run that at noon, all right? And then you got the playoff games, December 14th, December 21st, and then make the playoffs, the finals, January 1st or about that. Growing up, that's when the last football game was played, college football. No one cares about the Bahamas Bowl on January 4th, all right? We could get this done by the 1st.
I think we could figure it out, and it does feel like we're in a world where people are nimble, they're willing to change, so the CFP, hopefully they can do that. Last First Tate, Sal, I say to you, and in case you missed it, the Ravens tweeted this out pregame before their game against the Buffalo Bills. They tweeted a video of Mark Andrews, and they said, "A little snow doesn't bother," at M. Andrews 81. And I say to you, Sal, the Ravens pregame Mark Andrews tweet is the biggest jinx in recent playoff history. Had a bad fumble late, dropped the 2-point conversion attempt, and I blame it on the social media manager, not Mark Andrews.
Right, exactly. It came from the Ravens account, right? And I have to say, as a fan, I don't know if it should get you too excited if your guy's playing, bare-armed in the cold there in practice. We know what's going to happen. These guys, they go shirtless in the pregame, and then they go in the locker room and they're picking their nipples off the floor, the locker room floor, right? So we get what it is. We can get a break from it, and it's very different 4 hours later when someone's throwing a frozen boulder at you and you drop it.
It's also unfair for Mark Andrews, who I'm sure gets on his phone, is probably going to get some texts from friends and family that are thinking of you, buddy, loving you. And then he looks on Twitter. He's been tagged in this tweet, and people are like, "You're an idiot. Why would you say this before the game?"
His parents,
not
why aren't you wearing a shawl, sweetheart? Come on. Leave him alone. He's got a lot on his mind.
It's not Mark Andrews' fault. That's what we're saying here on this show. And now it's time to play my favorite game, Sal.
You were so patient. What's this called again?
Over under reactions. I read
hoping
you a
when we
statement.
switch studios, you'd have a different.
No, this is the game. You have to
Jenga,
play the
we sit here
game.
and play
No,
something.
we played that earlier over there. Now we're going to play my favorite game, and let's start with the Lions, Sal. The Detroit Lions Super Bowl window closed on Sunday. Over or under reaction? What say you?
Underreaction. It closed on Saturday. This game was played Saturday.
That's true.
No, I'm going to say overreaction. All right, so they're going to lose. They lost Ben Johnson. They're going to lose Aaron Glenn. Those guys are very good at what they do. But you're going to tell me this nucleus on the offense of Goff and Jamison Williams and Laporta and St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, those are talented guys, right? They're going to score points, and then they're going to get 15 defensive players back. So I think that NFC North is up for grabs. I wouldn't be surprised if first comes in fourth or everything, but the window did not close on this Detroit Lions.
And we live in a coordinator culture where if Dan Campbell left and there were the two coordinators there, somehow it feels like people would say they're in a better spot. But Dan Campbell is the front man, and he's been the one that changed the whole culture. So maybe believe in the Danimal. Next up, Sal, the guy who took them out of the playoffs, I say to you, Jaden Daniels is a top 5 NFL quarterback. Over or under reaction?
Well, there's Lamar, there's Josh Allen, there's Mahomes.
Okay, that's 3.
There's Dak, there's Cooper Kupp. I'm sorry, I don't think he doesn't make the top. He doesn't make my top 5. But
Cooper Kupp's playing quarterback now. You mean Cooper Rush?
Oh, did I say Cooper Kupp? Oh yeah. All right, Cooper Kupp is a better quarterback. No, it's Cooper Rush. Oh God, these Cowboys. I'll say underreaction, but I know I'm working myself into a corner here, right? Because we would have said the same about C.J. Stroud last year at this time. We would have said the same about Purdy.
I think we did say this about C.J. Stroud last year. Yeah.
Did we say it about Purdy?
Probably.
2 years ago?
Right.
Same thing. So I get it. We're going to be wrong, but right now there's probably not 5 better.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels.
There you go. Jaden Daniels getting a lot of love on this show. A guy who's not getting much love, Lamar Jackson. So I say to you, Lamar Jackson is the NFL's James Harden. Over or under reaction. Not really sure there's a 1-to-1 there, but this is what the people are saying right now.
I think there's a little, maybe a different comparison. I'm going to say overreaction. It's not like Lamar Jackson's demanding a trade after every TV timeout like James Harden, right? So maybe it's Clayton Kershaw.
All right.
Great regular season. Couldn't get it together in the postseason. Who else?
Phil Mickelson had that in golf, right? He could never win the major before he finally did, right? It's, it happens.
Touch of Connor McDavid. Can I get a thumbs up a little bit from the hockey guys in there? All right. Yeah, same kind of thing.
Mikey Meatballs in there giving us the NHL lowdown. Love that. So there you go. Lamar Jackson. In fact, Bill Simmons gave James Harden a nice compliment, kind of backhanded, talking about Mahomes and flopping and said, there was some artistry behind flopping. So there you go.
Yeah, I just ignored
Pat Mahomes is the
Sometimes
James
I just
Harden.
don't interrupt, so I hope that we can go on to the next thing.
Well, that's how we do it in this game, too.
What a flop. That was beautiful.
Next up, Sal, I say to you, over 23.5 people. That's a lot of people since, Sal, the quote, every NFC team has been to a title game more recently than the Cowboys stat that got circulated. Over or under reaction, Sal? How many people?
It's an underreaction. I think it was more like 323.5. Because, in fact, by the way, I'm trying to enjoy the Cowboys status. I'm making a joke with myself. I'm like, oh, maybe we should redo the power rankings. The Cowboys clearly came from the best division. How are they expected to make the playoffs?
Right.
Washington and Philadelphia, the two teams representing the whole conference, are in the finals. And then, like gangbusters, man. It was like an epidemic on my timeline.
Right.
All of these. Cowboys never make the NFC. I had to tell Adam Schefter, leave it in capital letters. I said, leave us alone, Adam. And he did. That was it.
They're picking on the little guy. This is what they always do. Classic stuff from the big-time media out there, the mainstream media. But the Cowboys, they'll be back, Sal. The little guy always comes around and gets a chance.
I know they'll be back, but what are they going to look like?
Next up, we say everybody outside of KC is rooting for Buffalo on Sunday. Is that an over or under reaction?
I would say an underreaction, but some people bet on these games, Tate. I don't know if you know this. So
some people.
You got
a good
the
amount
Bills
of people.
fans who are rooting for the Bills. You got the people who hate Mahomes and think the Chiefs cheat and the referees cheat from those people are rooting for the Bills. But there are people who are betting the Chiefs at a small number. Don't forget, they made their way through the conference. You could bet them as an underdog in the Super Bowl. You could have bet them as an underdog against the Ravens in the conference championship game. People don't want to pass on that opportunity again. It's a small number again. We'll go over it later on. So I would say maybe not everybody.
And you don't want to be, and we've joked about it on the show, you don't want to be the better, the sharp, whatever you want to call yourself. You get to the end, the Chiefs win again, and you say,
that's it.
Duh, of course.
Like, it's a long off season.
Yeah, it's like, what am I doing?
Yourself in the head.
Why am I trying to, convince myself otherwise when we've seen how this all plays out? Next up, I say to you, Sal, defenses no longer win championships in today's NFL. Over or under reaction? A famous trope.
You know what? I'll go with you here. I'll say underreaction. I think it's because the running quarterbacks are making a name for themselves. They have for years, but now we have 4. If you want to include Mahomes, right? You got Hurts, you got Allen, you got Mahomes, and you have Jaden Daniels, who can do it with their legs. They could extend plays, extend drives. And defensively, what can you do? You put a spy on them, and the spy is not nearly as good as the quarterback. So what are you going to do there? The spy franchise is gone. James Bond, the spies are gone. It's not fun anymore. So that's it. That said, Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo's defense is still the most underrated, I think.
We don't talk about it enough because of all the other stars on offense. But I will say to you, we did get history this season in the postseason. The Rams will be the first team in NFL playoff history with 15 or more sacks as a team to not make the Super Bowl. The other 7 that have done it have all made the Super Bowl. 6 of the 7 won the Super Bowl. The only ones that didn't were the Bills back in 1992, Sal.
Yeah, I think they had 16 in 2 games, right?
Right.
15 or more, yeah. So they did a fantastic job. They played 5 rookies on defense.
So that helps with the argument against the defense because the Rams defense, Jared Verse, incredible, taunting the crowd in Philadelphia. I've never seen.
Was he shirtless?
I think he was pregame. He was shirtless. A lot going on there. I say to you, Sal, it's impossible to shove somebody in a respectful manner. In case you didn't see this, D'Amico Ryan's defending his special teams coach getting shoved. Over or underreaction?
I think it's an underreaction. I think Elaine from Seinfeld tried it a lot. Get out! That was her patented move. I shoved my agent James Baby Doll Dixon into the Rose Garden. This is a true story, by the way.
Okay.
We were at the White House, and that was not respectful. So it's ridiculous. Imagine like this guy. Imagine you got C.J. Stroud going into the blue tent, and he sees his special teams coordinator. It's like, what are you doing here? This is weird. It's like, I just got shoved by our player. It was a respectful shove, but I got shoved by our own player.
The only time I could think of a respectful shove was not in real life. It was in Remember the Titans, and Gary Bertier is like left side, strong side, and they go back and forth, and it starts with a little shoving. That's the only time I've seen shoving look respectful. But again, that was a Disney movie, Sal, not real life.
Oh, so. It was a Disney movie?
Yeah, it was a Disney movie, not real life. Herman Boone, don't look it up, not real life. Next up, Sal, Magic Johnson will own a championship team in all 4 major sports in less than 10 years. He's working right now. Over or underreaction?
I'm going to say underreaction. All right, so what do we have so far? Dodgers before he sold, right?
Lakers before.
Right? Washington could be on their way. He needs a hockey team. Should he?
LA Kings.
That's too easy. I think he should go to like Vancouver.
Okay.
The Canucks. I think it'd be funny if he's all of a sudden like, what the hell? Magic Johnson's in Canada. Politics forced him out.
With the tweets, he can, he'll be on fire.
Tweets,
oh my gosh.
Ends everything with A. Yeah. But
I love his game stories.
Drives the Zamboni down the street in the parade, the streets of Vancouver. Maybe he takes some teeth out of that beautiful smile to fit in with the players. I think he could do it.
I think this would be great. And if he brings a title to Canada, I mean, they're going to love Magic Johnson. They might even build him a statue. How many statues can one man have?
Right.
Magic Johnson is going to figure it out. John Wooden's on his way to figure it out as well. Speaking of Magic Johnson, the Dodgers, obviously close to his heart. I say to you, Sal, the Dodgers are ruining Major League Baseball. Over underreaction.
You know, I have to say overreaction because my team signed Juan Soto and they paid, the amount that it cost to run Bolivia, basically, to get him. So it's nuts that they cornered the monopoly on the complete nationality of players. That's going to earn them a ton of money, win or lose, the Dodgers. You know what? I think Dodger Stadium ruined baseball because I just got back from that October playoff game.
I'm serious. You've never seen traffic baseball like it. It's unbelievable. And Bill made a good point on the podcast talking about the Mariners. The Mariners had this market cornered. They had Ichiro. They had all the Japanese players like wanting to go play over there, and the Dodgers just took it away from them. So Seattle obviously upset about that as well. Next one, Sal. The ACC is potentially changing their championship game rules to favor the great Bill Belichick. Over or underreaction?
I thought this was a joke, and then you read me right before we started what the rules are. And yes, this is definitely what's going on. They're basically entering 3 teams into the fray.
They're tinkering with the idea of like 2 playing 3, 1 getting a bye so they don't knock somebody out of the playoff. A lot of chicanery going around there.
So is every conference going to have a 16-team playoff before they get into the 16 teams?
The way that they're able to do this is like they're trying to say it makes the conference championship matter.
Yeah.
But I don't think it does. I just think this is a way to finagle the game.
You know what? I don't even care about this, to be honest with you, but I did get you a gift.
Oh, no.
Yes. This was a Christmas gift, but I haven't really seen you in person.
What are we...
I didn't wrap it, and you're not 7 years old. You don't need to be wrapped, all right? It's pretty cool.
I get to open this up?
I think you're going to like it. Oh, for God's sakes. How are we on time?
Oh, I'm locked in.
Yeah. All right.
Did you do this on purpose?
No.
Oh, my God. It's a doll?
We'll get it open. Let's go.
Good God.
It's not supposed to. All right.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Oh, it looks
Pull
like
that
my
thing
niece.
Pull it up. People are going to be weirded out. No, that's not really part of the gift. All right, that's the gift. All right. So it is a porcelain North Carolina cheerleader doll. And the best thing about this is there's no proper way to react to it.
I'm just so moved. My nieces are gonna love this.
Please tell me you don't have this already.
No,
You don't?
no, I almost for Christmas. We'll put this right here.
Good for you, buddy.
Yeah, look at us.
Look at her. Look at you.
Collegiate cheerleader collection, a Bill Belichick favorite. We love that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be good. Thank you.
I think she's friends with Bill's girlfriend.
Shout out to Jordan. Great
There you
name.
go. All right.
Oh.
You don't have one, right?
I don't have one
Okay,
already.
all right.
I appreciate
Wow,
that.
it's beat
I'm
red.
gonna wear my overalls and play with this doll.
Yeah.
Oh, what a moment. A couple more, Sal, my favorite game.
Why don't we end on that? Go ahead, keep going.
Do you want to end on that?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, we got a couple. Cowboys should hire Marcus Freeman over or underreaction.
You know,
quickly. You don't care. You don't want
I
him.
don't care. I would take Morgan Freeman at this point.
What about this Morgan?
She could do it. She'd do a good job coaching. For Marcus Freeman, Morgan Freeman narrating Dak Prescott climbed through 100 yards.
Good. Yeah.
Shit-felling smell.
I like if he narrated
Whatever.
the season, I would watch.
Just have AI coach the team at this point. Does it matter?
Well, I think Allen Iverson's helping Michael Vick.
Oh, that AI.
Yeah. Oh,
That
I'm
was-
sorry. I didn't know who you were talking about.
Jesus, Dave.
I'm all lost. Last one. The Ohio State National Championship means more to LeBron than the Lakers bubble title. Over or under reaction,
I have
Sal?
a lot more to say on this on Cousin Sal's winning weekend, but I don't even think LeBron remembers the bubble title, to be honest with you. I don't even really like when players root for other teams. I don't know. I'm weirded out by it. He shouldn't be rooting for this team. He didn't send his sons there. He doesn't care about it. He roots for, the Chiefs, the Eagles, Bills, Commanders. I'm sure he has those hats ready.
Bronny committed to USC. Bryce just committed to Arizona.
Yeah, he's a big Novak Djokovic fan. He's going to do it all. Cue the Aussie Open.
He's going to have fun with that. Let's call up the Riverboat captain and let's do some prop culture here, Sal. Before we get to the break, there is a question from the captain, and they're asking this, a simple one. What was the worst drop in the last calendar year? Obviously, a little bit finicky with where we are in the calendar. And we got the odds here. Mark Andrews, 2-point conversion, 3-1. We got Bronny's draft stock, 5-1. We got Aaron Judge's World Series era, 10-1. And we got the Hawk Tua coin value.
Oh,
at
did that
50
drop?
to 1.
I
It dropped.
It never
and
rebounded?
you invested a lot in that.
I know. It was a
unfortunately.
great gift from my wife. It was better than probably even that. Anyway.
Here's what I got with my Hawk Tua coin.
I'm going to, boy, those are all good choices. Mike Tyson dropped his shorts before the Jake Paul fight. Well, he wasn't actually ever wearing any, so I don't know if that counts as a drop. All right, here it is. Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje in April. I have the fight to not go the distance, and at 4:59 of the 5th round, Holloway drops Gaethje.
Oh,
Ref
wow.
calls it off. My best win ever. Definitely the best drop of the year.
Right.
God bless. I'm still waiting for them to take that win away from me. That's the best drop.
That's the best drop. I like that call there. I'm going to go with Bronny's draft stock because I thought someone was going to draft him and hold him hostage for the picks, which would have been great. That was great theater. Everybody wanted that. So that's why it was the worst, because I wanted the theater of LeBron having to barter to get his son on the Lakers. But
what about when I dropped that bomb on you?
That was up there. That was moving quickly. You could get that the field at even odds there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got more line look aheads and track to the futures with Cousin Sal. Welcome back to Thru the Ringer. I'm Tate Frazier, and I am still here with Cousin Sal. And Sal, we got championship weekend. We finally made it.
I don't know why I'm clapping. 3 games left. It's actually kind of sad.
I know. I was going to get like a little temp check before we get into these games. Mentally, how are you holding up right now? Obviously, a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of games, a lot of pregame shows.
That's
Obviously,
true.
if you're watching this weekend, been great stuff from the Ringer pregame team.
It's been okay. Yeah. No, there's a lot of work. No, it's fun, and it's being with the fellas and everything. But yeah, 3 games left, and then we have to, just
the dark side of the moon,
watch
right?
LeBron root for Ohio State. I don't know what happens.
Yeah, you wander around. So let's start with championship weekend. Let's start in the NFC because you know these teams very well. You see them quite a bit as a Cowboys fan. We got the Commanders taking on the Eagles. Eagles minus 6.5 in this game. Total 47.5. Who do you like in this one, Sal?
This started at 5.5. By the way, I guessed it exactly, and that led me to my first Guess the Line title. Come on, now. Let's
come on.
In probably 35 years. I don't know how long.
Bill said since 1934 or something crazy.
I'm going to make a joke here because my feelings are hurt. Anyway, I guess that's right. It went to 6.5. The casual bettor and all the talking heads think Washington is a live dog. I agree. They have a good shot, but it looks like the Sharps are laying into the Eagles here because it did go from 5.5, like I said, to 6.5. I do think there's not a lot of weather expected in the forecast, so it's supposed to be nice, like 30 degrees, low 30s and cloudy. Washington will take that because if it's a mess like it was against the Rams, that's the Eagles' best shot.
Yeah, that's best case for Barkley, who obviously was incredible against the Rams. I did want to ask you, after that game, Jalen Hurts, they were asking him about his injury, and he kind of had this Dr. Seuss quote, kind of like rain, sleet, or snow, the Eagles will be ready to go. But he kind of seemed like, he was happy and, kind of more lively than normal. Do you feel good about Hurts going into this game?
Not until he takes his shirt off pregame and runs around. I never can have a good.
Then Seuss.
Does Dr. Seuss perform the MRI on him?
Maybe.
Yeah, it is weird. The Eagles are favored to win the Super Bowl now out of these 4 teams. It's because the next matchup we're going to go over is such a coin toss. But I think Hurts is clearly the most inferior of the 4 right now.
By far. Yeah, right. And obviously we know he's dealing with an injury, so that factors into it. But there is a lot more to the story with the Eagles, especially from a passing side of things. So something to keep an eye on in this game. If the weather is good, the Commanders start scoring points. Dan Quinn, as you know, is a great defensive coordinator. So there is, you mentioned a live dog. I think the Commanders will be something to watch. Let's do another line look ahead. Let's flip to the AFC. We got the Bills taking on the Chiefs. This is the marquee matchup, obviously. Chiefs minus 1.5 in this one. The total, 47.5. The Bills have owned the regular season matchups, but the Chiefs have owned the postseason.
Right.
Do we think that will change in this game?
And of course, this line is 1.5. Every line, 90% of the lines this year have been 1.5. They're in the tic-tac zone, right?
Yeah.
It's probably I'm probably going to guess blindly 1.5.
Not the TikTok zone.
For the Super Bowl. No, TikTok. They're not going to ban the 1.5 line from FanDuel here. Anyway, I don't know. Look, I feel like the Chiefs have all kinds of advantages, right? History, they had the Reed-Mahomes combination. Some say they have the refs on their side. So this probably should be closer to 2 or 2.5 considering all that. And for the reason what you said, Buffalo can't get it done in the playoffs even though they did beat them in the regular season. But it's going to be very exciting. Sign me up for Josh Allen and Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, any combination of that for the next half dozen years, I'm good.
Me too. And I do want to point out one guy that I think in this game that could be sort of the bane of this game, the reckoning for Patrick Mahomes. And I do think Von Miller is someone we need to circle. Obviously, he had a big play last week.
Yeah.
This is what he does. This is what he did to Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. I mean, he likes to destroy a game and destroy a quarterback. So this will be a tough test for the Chiefs with Von Miller on the other side. That'll be a fun game. Excited to see what it looks like. And a matchup, like you said, that we will see hopefully for years to come. Let's track to the future NFL playoff leaders. Sal, who do you like? We got, obviously, rushing yards is pretty much wrapped up at this point with Saquon.
Yep.
But receiving is the interesting one you can make a play.
This is kind of cool. I mean, Kelsey, listen, I know we forget about him, right? He takes the whole season off and then like, this guy. And by the way, he looks so slow. I feel like any of us could tackle him, right? Like I could tackle him after a full Fogo de Chao meal, and he's open by 15 yards or whatever it is. But I like him at plus 390 to have the most receiving yards by the end of the playoffs. He has 117. He's 70 behind De'Ami Brown right now. Then there's some guys who are ahead of those guys, but they're out. So I'm banking on him to have the extra game. maybe them to win, maybe De'Ami Brown to lose. I think plus 390 is a good hedge there. He averages 100 over 14 games. It's insane.
And it does feel like in the playoffs, he's almost guaranteed to get the targets and to get the yards that are going to get him in that position. I have De'Ami Brown at plus 350 just because he is the leader in the clubhouse right now. I still kind of believe in Washington getting to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure they're going to win that game, but, I'm going to take my Carolina guy at plus 350.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Good bet.
Yeah, De'Ami Brown. Let's track to the future. Let's flip to the NBA. Sal, this is your future very soon.
This is what it is.
Yeah, this
is
what happens. We do a lot of NBA talk. Track to the future. A question, an existential question. If you're out here in Los Angeles, will the Lakers make the playoffs? Sal, do you like to play here?
I bet no at similar odds in the preseason, and I'm going to do it again at plus 132. I have to stick to it. Sending Bronny to the G League was a huge mistake.
They need him.
This team, they were so stupid. When you have a talent like that and you could showcase him and you send him off, and who knows what he's going to look like when he comes. Now they lost 4 out of 6 before the Washington game Tuesday night. They're a game and a half out of 11th place. If they get in that 7 to 10, the league might do what they need to push them forward, but I still think the plus number is fun. They have Boston, Golden State, the Sixers, and the Knicks coming up. 3 of those 4 are on the road. So.
And they have the worst record amongst the top 11 teams in the West, the worst record against winning teams.
Yeah.
So they beat up the bad teams, they lose to the good teams. That is not a formula for success. I like them to make the play-in, which is kind of typically where they've fallen into. With
you can bet this on FanDuel.
You can bet this. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Make the play-in at minus 125. So if you think the Lakers will be in that 7 to 10 range, which we assume they will be just based on the NBA and the politics that go into that, I don't think they're going to make it out of the play-in though, which is why you could bet both of those. You could take the minus 125 and then the Lakers.
That's pretty good.
So.
I mean, they can make the play and then it doesn't matter what happens after that.
Let's look ahead here. College basketball play of the day, Sal. You were 1-0 so far with our play of the day. As you got UNLV. That was a nice one over Utah State.
They beat Utah State, and what did you pick? Kansas. You got to be better than that.
That was terrible.
You had Kansas over Iowa State.
I was trying Kansas preseason number 1. I'm trying to believe that they're going to figure it out because they have the talent to figure it out, Sal, but they won't.
But if you're going to get Greg Gumbel's gig, you need to step it up.
Come on.
Let's pick a winner here. You go first.
You want me to go?
Yes,
all right.
You go first.
Well, this is they've turned into charity picks, but I do think there's no world in which that Calipari and this Arkansas team, Sal, can start 0-6 in the SEC. They currently sit at 0-5. They have the highest NIL roster in all of college basketball. If you believe all the numbers that are out there, they're going to play Georgia at home. Georgia is a good team, but I do think Arkansas at home, they have to win a game to get some sort of semblance of there is hope for the future. I think Cal gets this one, so I'm going to take Arkansas money line over Georgia.
Okay, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
I am going to take a terrible, terrible team, the Miami Hurricanes, right? Plus 10.5 over Stanford. They have to fly cross country, but here's what happened. I don't know if you know this. Stanford beat North Carolina.
Yes,
Did you see that
little
game?
letdown game.
In UNC.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
that's a letdown.
Yeah.
By the way, plenty of letdown for Miami, who's lost 14 out of 15.
They're horrible.
Lost by 42 to SMU.
I think they need 20.5.
The coach is like later. But yes, it's a little bit suspicious of a line. I like the 10.5. Interim coach Bill Courtney gets it done, Tate. You're going to see this. 73-67 final.
I like that because Stanford is going to be feeling good.
Right.
Miami's coming to town. They just got blown out by SMU.
Lots of partying on that plane.
Right.
I assume they took a plane back.
And going east to west is a lot easier than west to east, as we've seen.
So
yeah.
easy.
Mick Cronin keeps telling us about
You
this.
can do it in like 25 minutes if you got the right pilot.
It's super easy. Everybody knows this. Sal, you have Cousin Sal's winning weekend where you're going to break down these games in depth. Please let people know where to watch
Schlereth
you.
will be on, right?
Love
We're doing that Friday morning on FanDuel TV. Against All Odds podcast, you can hear that. And we have the Ringer pregame show on Sunday morning.
There you go. With John Jastrzemski and the rest of the gang will be a lot of fun.
I don't know their names, so whatever you say.
Raheem Palmer, I believe, is on the show. And of
Okay.
course, the legend Joe House. Go watch all 4 of those guys over there. We appreciate you, Sal, as always, coming on the show. And
Thanks,
we'll see you next week once we figure out who's in the Super Bowl.
Let's do it. I'll be back here.
Perfect. We'll see you then.
No gift, probably.
Yeah. We'll see you on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thru the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier, and joining us now, as she always does, Nora Princiotti. Nora, good to see you.
Great to see you, Tate.
Well, it's divisional weekend, Nora. We've been talking football all season long. We're inching closer and closer to crowning a champion. And speaking of champions, let's talk about the champs, the Chiefs. right now they look like they are in that mode again. Do you think that they have officially flipped the switch? Let's start there. Are the Chiefs back in championship mode?
Well, I mean, could have seen a little bit more offensive production the last time they were out to really give the take to you with my whole chest. But yeah, I mean, I still think they're a good team to beat. They're always going to be tough to stop. I mean, this Bills-Chiefs game, you sort of had to have had it circled since the beginning of the season almost. And when Buffalo beat Kansas City, I was reminded of this the other day. When that happened during the regular season, there was that clip after the game of Mahomes, congratulating Josh Allen, but you could hear him through the mic going, "We'll see you again, we'll see you again, we'll see you again," and that's what we got.
Yeah, and Pat Mahomes famously said they were playing in that match, the golf tournament together, like things that keep Josh Allen up at night. He said a coin toss. So he has made digs over the years at Josh Allen, obviously. I want to talk about Travis Kelce. He just broke a record that Jerry Rice had for 100-yard receiving games in the playoffs. That's obviously a big deal. Bill Simmons, our boss, said that he was a sports car that you just have in your garage and you save it for that once or twice a year that you need to bring it out. How many more times are we going to see vintage Kelce throughout the playoffs, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if they go all the way, and this is not, no reporting, just my gut. If they three-peat, I think he's done. I think, yes, it's the perfect analogy because he always turns it on this time of year, but particularly as he's gotten older, I think we've really seen him preserve his body and try to preserve his body during the regular season for these big moments. But you can tell Travis Kelce is getting older, that he's a step slower than he used to be, that the hits, they just hurt a little bit more, take a little longer to recover from. So if they get it done this year, I mean, I got to imagine this is the end of the road.
Yeah, you're talking narratives, you're talking storylines, so I want to start with this, which is a big picture question. Is it better for the Chiefs to go and actually three-peat for the larger story of the NFL, or is it better for Josh Allen and the Bills, the ultimate underdog, David versus Goliath type team, to get to the Super Bowl for the first time since the 90s? Like, which one is a better story in your opinion?
I think it's the Bills. But it's a really interesting question because I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, it's a three-peat has never happened in the history of the league. So why aren't we rooting for that? Like, why people who don't have a team, why doesn't that seem like the more interesting and fun and engaging outcome? Because don't you want to see things that you've never seen happen before in the entire history of the league? But I really don't think that's how people feel in general. I think the idea of this Bills team that even outside of Buffalo has just been really fun to watch over the last few years. Josh Allen is such an exciting player. I just think they've got a lot of goodwill. People want to see the Bills get a win finally. And to have that validation kind of how good of a team and an era of Bills football this has been, that I don't think they'll get without beating the Chiefs and without a Super Bowl to their name.
Last Chiefs thing, Bill talked about this a little bit too, the flopping. Mahomes is getting a lot of flack for the flopping. Where do you stand? Do you think this is gamesmanship? Is there an artistry to it? Or are you rolling your eyes? Like, is this another reason why he's maybe rubbing people the wrong way?
Yeah, I think Mahomes, this is how they win, right? Like, this is how, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. You saw it with the Patriots in the middle of that dynasty. When you're really good and when you have all the fundamental stuff down, you start practicing as a team just these little situational moments and how you're going to manage a particular officiating crew in a given game and what you do in these really niche situations. And then what do you know, in these games that matter, they come up. And I think you can put, flopping or a little bit of theatrics into that conversation. I don't think it's just Mahomes. I think that given the rules changes that have become part of the game, there are some quarterbacks and other players who are getting smart to the fact that this is something that they can use to their advantage in some ways. And I'm really curious to see if it becomes a big storyline. And I do think that if it did, it would probably have a lot to do with the Chiefs, just because there is such a conversation about them and the refs. Some of that I think is a little unfair, but other times it's not.
I think you get a pass, too, like when you are Patrick Mahomes. This would be like if Michael Jordan was flopping instead of Vlade Divac, right? You know, I think people probably would have taken the flopping a little bit differently or framed it in a different way. So it's a great conversation, and I'm sure after this weekend we'll talk about it more. I want to talk about Lamar because I know this isn't about Lamar. He's obviously not in the playoffs anymore, but that was a tough loss. He did have the fumble. You know, he did have the interception, which is a little bit mind-boggling, but, you know, he did have the moment with Mark Andrews to drop 2-point conversion. So there are caveats, but just as we stand and we look back and there's a chance he wins his third MVP, how do we kind of grade Lamar's season this year? Because we're not going to be so harsh. This wasn't a Lamar loss, I don't feel like, but still we live in a world where people will frame it that way.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's complicated. How do we grade Lamar's season, the totality of his season? MVP caliber, best he's ever had. This guy who's been underrated his whole career as a pure pocket passer found a way even to take a step forward in that respect, which how it was possible is just really impressive on his part, on the whole Ravens offense, on Todd Monken. I think the MVP could go either way between him and Josh Allen. Either one would deserve it, but Lamar had one of the best seasons as a quarterback that, you know, we've seen in recent memory.
Yeah.
I do think it's tough how it ended, though, because, you know, is it a Lamar loss? Not necessarily, but like I'll tell you that I went to that game and I was around the press conferences afterwards. Lamar didn't think that it wasn't a Lamar loss necessarily. Like Lamar didn't give off the impression that it would be unfair to criticize him for having two really costly turnovers in a game that mattered a lot. Like at a certain point, I do think we have to sort of just acknowledge this is an amazing, talented quarterback. I am 100% positive that that is true. And so far, and football is a small sample size game, he has been a worse player in the playoffs and in the games that matter the most.
But then the larger question, are we appreciating these guys enough? We got Mahomes, we got Allen, we got Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. You know, there's a lot of good quarterbacks right now in the NFL. Are we giving them their due, or are we doing too much nitpicking because they're all really good in their own way?
Well, I do think people in general appreciate that we are in a fabulous era of young quarterbacks, especially in the AFC. The Chiefs have made it really hard. I was going back through some stuff, and I'm quoting from my head, so forgive me if I get this a little bit off. But I think the last time that an AFC quarterback in the Super Bowl was not Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, or Peyton Manning, other than Joe Burrow, who went the one time. Other than Burrow, it's been since 2013 and the Ravens and Joe Flacco. So the fact that the AFC has just been controlled by these two dynasties for a really long time has made it really hard to kind of appreciate or to let some of these guys, and particularly Josh Allen and Lamar, I think, are the two who really fall into this category, for them to kind of be recognized as having realized their full potential, right? But I do think the thing that we should remember is that Peyton Manning didn't win a Super Bowl until his 9th season. Like, there is still time, and people shouldn't panic and say that, you know, Josh Allen is going to sort of be Phillip Rivers, right? Like, they're never going to get there. They're never going to get there as long as the Chiefs are there, as long as Patrick Mahomes is there. It really, I think, only takes one Super Bowl run to shift the narrative around a quarterback, and they will have time.
Yeah. Lamar has time, and you mentioned that. I mean, there took a miracle from the Ravens, the Mile High Miracle, for them to even get to the Super Bowl that year. So the Broncos could have easily been in 2013 as well. So there has been the usual suspects and a lot of good quarterback play, and I'm sure we'll see Lamar there. It's exciting to see Mahomes versus Allen. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the divisional side in the NFC. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Thru the Ringer. We're here with Nora, and we are now going to sift through the NFC. And before we get to the football, because we are in the divisional round, let's start in the NFC North because we got some movers and some shakers. Ben Johnson is officially going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. On a scale of 1 to 10 shock factor, how shocked were you when you saw this news drop, Nora?
And honestly, like a 2 in some ways, to the extent that it was, because I feel like at the beginning of the coaching cycle, this made a whole lot of sense, right? Like, okay, young quarterback, especially once working with Drake May was no longer an option. You kind of assumed that if what Ben Johnson, offensive guys who had success with quarterbacks, if what he wanted out of this was a job where he got to work with a talented young quarterback, then the Bears made all the sense in the world, right? Like, okay, go see what you can make happen with Caleb Williams. That seems like the right fit. Then we got into all this nonsense with the Raiders, which I found kind of flabbergasting, just because if you went through all of the jobs, I think it was 13 in total, that Ben Johnson had interviewed for over the last 3 seasons, I really think that other than maybe the Panthers when he interviewed with Carolina the second time, so not the year when they had the pick that they used on Bryce Young, but after a year where you would really sort of question what it was going to look like to have to make it work with Bryce Young. I think that was the worst job Ben Johnson ever interviewed for. Sorry, Tate.
It's okay.
Other than that, I think this Raiders job was like the second worst. And it seemed like he didn't even have it on his radar before Tom Brady started sort of lobbying. And then the difference was that if Tom Brady was going to somehow like convince Ben Johnson that it made sense to go to the Raiders, like I just was trying to figure out what that conversation would even look like. Because I get being like, oh, I want to work with Tom Brady. That's such a cool idea. I would love to pick his brain. I would love to have him sort of on my side. But there's nothing Tom Brady can do in the immediate about the fact that the Raiders don't have a quarterback, have so many other roster holes that if they thought about trading up, for instance, to try to get a quarterback at the top of this year's draft, they'd have to trade up from 6. They'd be costing themselves opportunities to plug some of those other holes. Obviously, they have a very bad track record with coaching hires. And then you've got some really scary teams, particularly the Kansas City Chiefs, in the division. So to me, it's not a shock in the sense that I think it would have been shocking if Tom Brady alone would have been enough to sway Ben Johnson to taking what is, I think, the second worst out of 13 jobs that he's interviewed for in the last 3 years. To the extent that a lot of the reporting and a lot of the buzz from the insiders had started to suggest that what was happening, it's a surprise relative to that. But, just goes to show, can't always believe what you hear, Tate.
Yeah, there was a lot of smoke about Tom Brady and the Raiders, but I think you make a great point. Tom Brady was not going to be playing quarterback for the Raiders, and I think if he was, Ben Johnson's
probably... Yeah, we might have a different conversation.
He might be a little bit more intrigued by the idea of coaching and going down to the Raiders. I think that's, getting Caleb Williams is obviously a nice prize there, and we'll see what they can do in Chicago together. That'll be a nice piece. But the other piece of this situation is the Lions. After the game, Dan Campbell said that the window is not closed, even though they're most likely going to lose both of their coordinators. Do you believe the Danimal? Do you believe Dan Campbell that the window is not closed, or do you think it actually is?
Oh, man.
Tough question, I know.
So it's interesting because the Lions, there's 2 ways to build a football team, right? Or 2 sort of primary ways. And one is you build the infrastructure and then you drop the quarterback in the middle of it. And the other one is you have an elite quarterback and you just fill in the gaps outside of that as best as you can. And the Lions obviously fall into the first category. And so, I really believe in Dan Campbell as a program builder. I think he'll do well either hiring or just developing other coordinators and young coaches if they do lose both coordinators this year, if Aaron Glenn goes somewhere else as well. I do think the question mark is when the clock starts ticking on Goff. And when you start asking yourself the same question that, essentially Sean McVay ended up asking, which is, can this guy actually get us over the hump? Clearly, he can get you very close. But with some of these more limited quarterbacks, there is that lingering question of, in the really hard games at the end of the season, in the playoffs, is he just not going to have it? And I It's funny because I think he's taken steps forward in his own development, but I do think that they're going to start asking those questions.
And those are fair questions because on the other side of the ball was a rookie quarterback who went up on the road and has now gotten 2 playoff games, which leads to a larger question. Jaden Daniels, I mean, we don't even know what the ceiling is yet, but can he be the first rookie quarterback to go win 3 games in the playoffs? Like, can he go on the road in Philadelphia, probably the toughest place to play, and make another statement and get his team to the Super Bowl? Like, how possible is that? Because when you watch, it looks very possible. I mean, he looks like the guy trying.
I really don't see why not.
Right.
I mean, clearly he doesn't have any, jitters or the spotlight's too bright or the stage is too big for him. Like, I think at this point, you'd be worried about that in the first round of the playoffs. I think by this point, you trust that he's going to be ready for the moment. And I think with the way that this Eagles team is playing, they seem totally beatable. And so, again, why not?
Yeah, why not? I think it's a great question to ask. Another one I have for you. Can Saquon Barkley actually carry this team to the Super Bowl? Is this going to be John Mara's nightmare in real time, Nora? Because so far, so good for Saquon.
Yeah. You know what, Tate? Here's what I'll tell you. I think we're going to find out.
Yeah.
Because I don't see a whole lot from the Philadelphia Eagles these days that shows them being particularly invested in their passing offense. I have a hard time believing, particularly with how quickly Washington has shown that they can score and how explosive they can be, particularly because as the Eagles have sort of popularized, they are always willing to use all 4 downs. I wonder if Philadelphia is going to be forced into some situations where the idea of just like handing it off to Saquon basically every snap is not going to be as feasible for them. But you tell me that happens, I start to feel a little less confident. Not that I'm super, super confident in the Eagles to begin with in this game. I feel a little less confident that they're going to be able to get it done. So I do think that they're going to continue to rely on their running game. I mean, that is their bread and butter. But I think if you're game planning against them, if you're in Washington right now, the number one question is just sort of like, what do we need to do so that they don't feel like they can do that because they are so vulnerable in other ways.
Yeah, and I think Eagles fans are probably praying to play in the snow again because that was a nice piece
totally.
that they had in that game against the Rams, because that was a very tough matchup against the Rams. Last thing, Nora, before I let you go, I have to ask about another team in the NFC East. You got two of them playing to go to the Super Bowl, but there's one team with one owner sitting on the outside looking in, Jerry Jones. What's the next move for Jerry? Obviously had a nice turn as an actor. Does he hire a GM? Does he hire a football coach? Does he coach? Your thoughts on where Jerry's at right now?
I mean, first of all, Tate, I got to put up a sign that's like closed for business on Jerry Jones questions. I don't know what that guy's going to do.
Yeah, right.
I think the history of Jerry Jones would tell us that there's often a lot of buzz about the Cowboys and splashy names. Is it Dion? Is it Belichick? And then often the actual moves are a little bit more low-key. So is he going to hire a GM? To me, doubtful, because I don't think that he wants to. I think he'd like to keep doing what he's doing and to have his family keep doing what he's doing. And I also don't think that he's going to hire the type of coach that's going to have the leverage to sort of force something like that on the Cowboys. I think if I had to guess, I just wonder if something happens with Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
Because it's a name that they know. It's sort of like that's the type of hire that historically Jerry has actually made after he's made a big, fuss about the splashy guys that could come in but then never actually do.
Yeah, it is the Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man, 2009. That is what Jerry's looking for. Who will be his new Yes Man? And Kellen Moore, I think you're first up on the docket. Nora, thank you for saying yes and coming on the show as always. Where can we find all your amazing work? And we'll let you go enjoy the rest of your day.
TheRinger.com, every single album, Ringer NFL show, and, the streets of New York City.
There you go. Well, Nora, we appreciate you coming on the show as always, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks.
There you have it for another edition of Thru the Ringer. Thanks to Cousin Sal. Thanks to Nora, as always, for coming on the show. And we appreciate you tuning in to Thru the Ringer. And we'll see you next week.